Hey guys, well, welcome to another podcast, another episode of Nurses Outside the Box. Today, I'm so happy to be here with Shannon Whittington. Shannon is a nurse, very passionate about LGBTQ+, and I'll introduce a little bit more. But first of all, welcome, Shannon. It's so awesome to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. You know, when we got started on LinkedIn, I was so impressed by everything you do. I'm just going to read a little bit of your resume and then we'll jump in. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
So I love when you said you are a published author and certified speaker with the John Maxwell team. Your areas of expertise are LGBTQ plus inclusion in the workplace, diversity and inclusion, and servant leadership. You have a passion for transgender health, and you educate clinicians on how to care for transgender individuals after undergoing various gender-affirming surgeries. And you had some awards too, so we'll talk about that soon. But so I think that in itself speaks of a lot of innovation. And I always love to start off asking people, what makes you a nurse outside the box, Shannon? You want to jump into that?
Oh my God, that's such a loaded question. I think a nurse outside the box is outside of bedside care nursing, which I think is great. I built my chops on bedside nursing. But I think nurses outside the box are nursepreneurs. They're running their own companies. They're doing things that people didn't know that nurses can do. We can be certified legal nurse consultants. We can supervise movie sets that are based on medical issues. There's just so many things that we can do beyond caring for patients. And listen, I love caring for patients, but this profession is so broad and expansive. There's so many things that we can do to really be successful.
Yeah, I love that. You want to dive into your story a little bit? Because when I saw your story on LinkedIn first, I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that existed for a nurse to do, right? Working with the LGBTQ plus inclusion and communities and in businesses. Tell us about your story. How did you get started? How did you get from a bedside nursing to where you are right now? I'd love to hear it.
Well, I never thought that I was going to be like the lesbian poster nurse, and I just kind of fell into that, especially on LinkedIn. An opportunity came up where they were doing these gender affirming surgeries, and I was asked to go and attend various lectures. I knew nothing about it, even though I'm a part of the LGBTQ plus population. I've been with my wife for 21 years. I didn't know anything about transgender health. I didn't know anything about gender affirming surgery. So it kind of started from there. And once I started learning about this, I realized that the lack of knowledge that our healthcare professionals know about the LGBT population. The most recent research shows that the average nurse gets about 2.12 hours of education in LGBTQ. Now, I received 0. I'm still waiting on the nurse who got 2 hours. Did you get 2 hours, Anne-Marie?
No, I didn't.
No, exactly. And you know what? I get a nursing intern every semester, from Ivy League to online. It doesn't really matter. And I always ask them this question: have you been exposed to any of this? And like 9 times out of 10, they say no. And so that's when I realized that this was an area that I really could dig my feet into and really cause some clinical transformation around that. And that's my goal for myself until I leave this world.
Oh, I love that. So I'm curious. So you were kind of jumped into this, into these surgeries, right? And into these gender affirming surgeries. So that was still in your nursing career, right? That was still in the hospital at this point?
No, in home care. In home care. Because, a lot of people just think about nursing in the hospital or nursing in the doctor's office but there's a big component of nursing, which is aftercare. When you go home after your surgery, what happens? Research shows that nurses who see a patient within 24 hours to 48 hours decrease readmissions by an alarming rate, right? Especially with CHF patients. So Home care is a big component. You know, I don't know how big it is across the country, but here in New York, it's huge. Like when I speak across the country, a lot of times organizations don't know anything about home care. They think it's nurses who've forgotten everything they learned. And that's so far from the truth, because we're out there on our own, we're very independent, and we really got to know, we have to have some really acute assessment skills to take care of these patients.
Yeah, totally. No, I love that. So how did you then come from doing home care to starting your own business? Because right now that is what you do, right? You have your own business in
I
this
have
whole
my
area.
own consulting company. You know, I received an award about, I think it was like 2018, for my work in this work with transgender individuals. And after I gave like this speech and everything, you know, the big, you know, conference room and everything, I had so many people come up to me. And they said things like, oh my gosh, you know, our organization knows nothing about this. Oh my goodness, we didn't realize that we have a deficit in this area. And I started thinking, this is a business opportunity, you know? Yeah. And so I said, you know what? Let me start my own company and try to address this need. So now what I do is I train healthcare organizations, especially in the HR department, because it starts in HR, on how to have inclusive, LGBT inclusive in an organization, in a healthcare organization, your practice, the doctor's office, the dentist, the hospital, wherever it is, like we're there. We're seeking care. We get sick just like anybody else. And you know what? We want to go to practitioners who know how to take care of us, who are not going to discriminate against us, who are not going to ask me to take 10 pregnancy tests. Yeah. You know, and that's what's happened with me, you know, as a gay woman. Oh, I need you to take a pregnancy test. Well, I'm gay, so I can't be pregnant, you know? But yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And once I really, you know, it wasn't my intention to come out on LinkedIn, which is how we met, Anne-Marie. It really wasn't my intention to come out on LinkedIn, but once I started embracing who I really was and what it was that I was really passionate about, that's when my business really started to take off. And I have consulted with some really big companies, healthcare organizations, and not, you know, on this. And it's been amazing. I never thought this would happen, really, as a nurse. You know, I really didn't, but it's been amazing.
No, I get that. And I'm curious, how did you do that? And that's what I think probably a lot of people ask, maybe, is so from that idea, right, of saying, okay, I want to do something about it. I have an award around this, people are coming. How did you then start your own consulting business? How did you do that?
Oh gosh, it was so hard. I have to say, it was really hard. I didn't know what I was doing, you know, to be completely honest. My wife said, okay, you need to register your company. So I registered my company, Whittington Consulting. I started doing a lot of posts on LinkedIn around LGBTQ plus issues. And I just kept doing that. I was very consistent with that. And then organizations started contacting me, and podcast hosts like you started contacting me and asking me to be on and to talk about this or to submit articles. And it's just grown from there. You know, it's been amazing, I have to say.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. That's amazing. What would you say to, so where do you see yourself going? I'm curious, first of all. I mean, you're starting to be very successful here. Where do you see yourself going in your company? And I'm also curious, where do you see nursing going? I don't know if you can talk about both. But.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, where I see myself going is to continue this work on a larger scale. You know, there's so many organizations that have no idea about LGBTQ plus inclusion. They don't. And, you know, you can't really fault them. You know, some of them, if they've seen me speak or they've watched a video, they will reach out to me. And then sometimes they do something they shouldn't have done, or they say something they shouldn't have said, or they should have said something and they didn't say it.
Right.
And then they call me, you know. So I see myself continuing to be consultant and continuing to speak across the country like I do now. And as far as the nursing profession, you know, I mean, you've interviewed some amazing guests on your show, Anne Marie, and I think the future of our profession has a lot to do with nurses becoming nursepreneurs, as Michelle Rhodes says. I don't know if you know Michelle Rhodes on LinkedIn, but I don't know if she coined that term, but nurses are becoming owners and consultants and writers and authors. You know, I'm like releasing 2 books, believe it or not. Like, I never thought that that's something that I would do, you know, because you have to think, I mean, think about it. We're not taught that in our nursing curriculum.
No, not at all.
You know, it's all about working for a doctor, working in a hospital, working in a clinic. We're not taught anything about entrepreneurship. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I mean, were you?
No, nothing. Zero.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, you know, there's a lot of potential with us, and I love it. I mean, I'm connected with thousands of nurses on LinkedIn, and it's amazing to me what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree. How did you get into speaking, by the way? I did want to ask that. And speaking and your books, I'd love to hear about that. But you also decided to become part of the John Maxwell team and really get into speaking as well, right? Was that I assume it was a conscious choice at one point to do that.
Yeah, it was a conscious choice. You know, like they say in nursing, you should stay in one area 5 years, then move to another area. And I had done so many different areas, and I thought, okay, what can I do completely outside of nursing? And I found the John Maxwell team, which is all about servant leadership, which totally plays into nursing, right? So I went to Florida and got certified with the John Maxwell team. I'm talking like 500 hours of studying and 6 books. And it was just so much work, but it was so worth it because now I can use that knowledge to teach nurse leaders how to be better leaders. And with that, my coach there said to me, you know, you should write a book. So I wrote a book called Kindergarten for Leaders, 9 Essential Tips for Grown-Up Success. And then, yeah, it's coming out really soon. It's been so hard to go, my God. And then the second book is LGBTQ plus ABCs for grown-ups. So, you know, and I've got 2 more in my head that won't leave me alone, but I'm studying for my doctorate, so it's kind of hard to do all of that. But yeah, I mean, if I ever thought as a nurse that I would be a speaker, an award-winning speaker, an author, you know, contributing author to various magazines, speaking all over the country, I would have thought, who are you talking about? Not me, you know? So.
Right. But you're doing it. I love that.
Yeah,
I really, truly think it's amazing what you're doing. What would you say to nurses, specifically who are in the LGBTQ plus community? What would you say to them? Do you think they have a specific role moving forward?
I do. You know, there's a lot of us in this profession.
Yeah.
There really is. And so many of us are hiding, you know, and I hid for, I mean, I just shot a video about that before we came on. I hid for a while, you know, I didn't really feel comfortable being out in my organization. I fell in love with a coworker. I had to hide everything. It was miserable. I left the organization. And that's when I decided that I was going to do something about that. And how could I train organizations to have more inclusivity with us? And that's just been a passion of mine ever since, because no one should really have to hide who they are. You know, research shows that organizations who have diverse workforces make better decisions 87% of the time.
Oh, wow.
You know, that's according to Forbes. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I would like to make better decisions 87% of the time, you know?
Yeah.
So, yes.
But what would you do if you had an army of like another 100 nurses doing what you do, right? In the workplace, people in the workplace. What would that look like? What would you think would be the benefit? I think you already said it, but I always want to, like, there's a thought I have. If you had another 100 nurses doing what you do, right? What would that mean in the workplace?
Oh my gosh, that would be like utopia for me because, you know, and I love clinical transformation. Like I train a lot of nurses. I've probably trained over 300 nurses on how to care for transgender individuals. And I have nurses who come in who have very strong views about this, religious views, political views, whatever. They think it's wrong or whatever. And my goal, I always tell them, I'm not trying to convert you. I'm just trying to alert you. And I was speaking to a nurse today who's probably taking care of about 10 trans patients. And she said, Shannon, this has been the best thing I've ever done to add this skill set to my arsenal. So I would probably start a parade with those 100 nurses, you know, because I would be so excited to have nurses that are really committed to this population. But what I really hope in the long term is that we don't have to have special training for this, right? It's just a part of our curriculum. I want to add questions to our NCLEX about this population because that will force our universities and colleges to include this in their curriculum. And they've done studies on our nursing curriculums and have asked these universities, do you have this training? And it goes from, no, we don't, we never will, why would we? To absolutely, yes, we are. So I want that to be included in all curriculums because we are caring for these patients and we need to know how. You know, it's not that hard, but there are specific needs, especially if you're talking about gender nonconforming, non-binary, queer people, transgender individuals. There's a whole set of things that we need to know with this population, and we're simply not taught. And, you know, do you blame the teacher or do you blame Johnny? You know, it's just one of those, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. Awesome. I'm curious, what would you say as we're wrapping this up? And I have loved talking to you, and anybody's listening, please share this, because the one thing that's touched me most is you saying there's so many of us, right? And there's so many of that this needs to come out, both in the workplace as well as for nurses, that nurses are still hiding. And that's it's almost like, oh, that's right, that needs to change. We're living in that kind of place that hopefully that nurses can feel comfortable coming out with their gender and who they are, right? And on a very deep level. I'm curious, as you what would be a recommendation for, first of all, how can nurses find you, right? If they're curious and like, okay, I want to kind of, maybe I'm curious, how can I connect with you? I'd love to hear how they connect with you. We'll put the links in down below as well. And then I think the second question is like, what would you say to nurses who are either in the position, right, of being part of the LGBTQ community, or in general to nurses as entrepreneurs? I'm curious, what would be your tips?
Well, you can reach me on LinkedIn. Like, that's my primary platform, Shannon Whittington on LinkedIn. You can DM me there. I connect with everyone. I'm connected with thousands of nurses. So I would love to connect with you. But what I would say to these nurses as far as entrepreneurship or just being LGBT, you know, it's a matter of if you feel comfortable enough to come out and be a champion. And it depends on where you are. You know, I'm originally from Tennessee, right? Knoxville, Tennessee. And it's not that friendly, to be honest. Meanwhile, my mom's neighbor is gay, a gay couple, and she's helping to take care of my mom, which is kind of like, I can't believe it, you know? So if you feel like you are in an organization where you can be out, trust me, there's other people just like you there who need the support. If you are an ally or an advocate, raise your hand. If you see something, say something. And as far as entrepreneurship is concerned, the sky is the limit with what we can do as nurses. You know, we are capable of doing some really big things. I never thought that I would have my own company. I never thought that I would be an author. I never thought that I would be on podcasts. I never thought that I would speak all over the country. And we're only talking about in the last, like, I only started my company last year, you know? So I mean, we can do a lot, and we can impact the world in some really big ways.
Thank you. Thank you. I have loved this interview. You are amazing. You have such a heart for this. I can just sense it even through these cameras.
Oh,
I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah, you do, as well as for entrepreneurship. And I love your courage. I do want to say that courage in both what you're doing, the topics that you have, and also coming out and saying boldly, I'm just making a business, and I'm taking a go for this, right? And for nurse innovation and nurse entrepreneurship. So thank you so much.
it was scary. I have to say, I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
Took a lot of courage.
What was more scary, coming out for and really boldly, or the nurse entrepreneurship? Which one was more scary?
I think coming out boldly, I just didn't plan on doing that. But once I did, that's when things really started to take off for me. And I'm unapologetic about it. You know, this is who I am. Like it, love it, hate it. I'm not going anywhere. Gay people aren't going anywhere. Okay, we're just going to grow and grow and get bigger and bigger. So you might as well learn to live with us. We're not asking for any special treatment. You know, we just want to be allowed to be and exist. As my mom says, let every tub sit on its own bottom.
I love that. How long was that? Because I think sometimes, I love it, we touch upon this. Sometimes when something is very scary and we do it anyway, right? It becomes normal so fast. At least as I have found, right? The things have been so scary for me. Once I do them, it's like, wait a minute, why was that, right? How long did it take for you from saying, from taking the step and then being very comfortable with it, like you're now, right now?
You're right. It was very quick. Probably less than 60 days.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Probably less than 60 days. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much again. This has been a beautiful interview. And yeah, let's get more nurses involved into what you're doing. And guys, for anybody else listening, please share. Please share, because there is a nurse who needs to hear this probably more than we think sometimes, right? And so please share this with somebody else. And yeah, let's make a difference.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Shannon.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.